right, good morning, everybody. My name's Marla. I'm in New Orleans area and I'm going to be facilitating the meeting today. Eracism is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating all human beings with love, respect, empathy, compassion, and humility. Join us. Erace is an organization that does not espouse any political party, and we have no religious affiliation. We believe in acceptance of all people and no personal attacks of any kind will be tolerated. We come with the intention to listen, learn, and not to argue. And I have the land acknowledgement. We begin today by acknowledging that what we know as the United States is the ancestral and unceded territory of many indigenous peoples, and that there are many more nations and tribes that could be named here. Members of our meeting group today are on the lands of the Chitimacha and Choctaw in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Tonkawan, Lipan, Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Lenape and Piscataway in Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston, the Cahuilla and Mojave in Riverside, and the Lumbee in Fayetteville. We thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through the generations and through today. We need to protect and honor the history and people of these places. Despite centuries of colonial theft and violence, we should always remember that we are still on Indigenous land and it will always be Indigenous land. All right, just briefly to review the format of the meeting, and then I'll have everybody introduce themselves. If you're not speaking, please keep yourself on mute. I will be keeping a list of folks who want to speak, and in order for you to indicate that you'd like to speak, please raise one finger to be put on the list. When you're speaking, others should not interrupt the speaker. There shouldn't be side comments, personal attacks, or name calling. And if during the time that someone is speaking, you have a question about something that they said, you may put up two fingers to ask a clarifying question. As we know, clarifying questions are not to further the opinion of the asker. They're just to require clarification, such as, can you clarify what you meant by? I didn't understand what you meant by specifically a word or a term or something else, a concept. All right, let's have everybody go around. I'll call you up and just briefly introduce yourselves. Phyllis.
Good morning, I'm Phyllis. I've been coming to Erace meetings since 2008 and I am in New Orleans.
Beatrice.
Hi, good morning. I'm here in East Point, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. I've been coming to Erace since when I lived in New Orleans in 1993, and here having founded Erace Atlanta 2006. Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Nancy.
Good morning, I'm Nancy Moore. I'm here in New Orleans and I've been coming to Erace since June of 2007.
Marion.
This thing says.
Oh, you just muted yourself. There you go. Oh. Still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Hi again, everybody. This is me, Marion in New Orleans. All discombobulated. I've been coming to the race discussion since June of 1993.
Thank you. Pedro.
Yes, good morning. Good to be back. I was coming real regularly for the last 2.5, 3 years, and then I have not been to a meeting in some time, so was going through withdrawals and thought I should show up today. I wanted to announce I'm in my 5th week of a kidney transplant, so I am really, really blessed to have that new part of me, and just want to share that with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. So happy that you're here, and best wishes for your ongoing recovery. Okay, Teresa.
Hi, I'm Teresa. I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I've been coming since I think August 2022.
Thank you. Reverend Larry.
Good morning, I'm Larry. I started attending Erace meetings around 94, 95. Happy to be here. Glad to see everybody again.
Thank you. Amal.
Yeah, how y'all doing this morning? I'm Amal. Been coming to Erace meetings since 1997 and been coming ever since.
All right, fantastic. Thanks everybody for the introductions. The article that I selected today, I really just wanted to select something that was timely with things that are going on in the world. And this particular incident of these Delta employees who were wearing a Palestinian flag pin kind of inundated my Instagram feed. I follow a lot of pro-Palestinian folks and news sources on Instagram. And I just thought it would be an interesting discussion to see what everybody thought about this and its resolution and so forth. So with that, I will start putting names down for folks to be on the list to speak. And if somebody's able to do the timer, because we know I don't think y'all can hear when I have my timer go off. I can make an attempt to see, but let's see if you can hear this. I'm having problems even pulling it up here. Okay. Can you all hear that? So yeah, if somebody else, or I can just kind of gently cut you off while you're speaking, if that would be easier.
Yeah, they've never been able to hear mine either, so.
Yeah,
you can
okay.
Interrupt if you need to.
All right, I will interrupt if I need to. All right, who would like to be on the list to kick us off? Phyllis.
I guess I'm going.
Yep.
Well, I, like you, saw this on Instagram. And I saw the pictures that were posted. I saw what Delta's response was, their media person's response. And it's just so interesting to me that people react that way to the Palestinian flag. Yeah, it's to conflate resistance with terrorism, I think, is where I get really bogged down by it. And one of the symbols of the resistance is a red triangle. So I wonder if Delta's going to have to change their whole logo, because they kind of have a red triangle situation going on. I don't know if they know about that yet. It'd be funny if they found out and changed it. But yeah, the pictures that were posted of, two flight attendants with Palestinian flags on, and then acting like they were representing Hamas. I mean, it's just, first of all, that's the resistance, and oppressed, occupied people have a right to resist by international law. So, and there's all this talk in our country of having DEI in the workplace and being accepting of everyone and all views, and then suddenly it doesn't apply when it comes to Palestine. So, that's all for now.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Beatrice?
I just thought that the initial response by whoever this Delta official was on X was just nothing to worry. This is being investigated. Just the tone of it. And then I hear you. I'd be terrified as well. What are you talking about? I mean, to jump to on this is, where Phyllis has already expressed so well, but to move to I'd be terrified of what? And people taking pictures of someone without their permission and then posting them. All of this to me is just an indication that we are not as sensitive about human beings and who we are and who we have a right to be as we need to be. It's just everything becomes things spin out of control because we don't think through, we don't empathize, we don't feel with people who are in struggle and pain and their ways of being expressed by whoever, I become impatient with us when we are not patient and loving and thoughtful with others, especially where issues that have to do with people's rights to express their need to not be oppressed and their need to be heard. But this, to where, and now, of course, a corporation, Delta has to jump up and say, this does not go with our values. Well, who was this person in the first place? And why did they have they're an official? How could they respond in that way? So it's distressing. And the more I hear of companies not being aware that you need to have a diverse group of people making decisions, diverse people in corporate boardrooms, because if you do not look around and see people who are not like who we generally see in these positions, we're going to make some really bad judgments. I mean, it comes down even to commercials that you see on television. I mean, we need to do better. And this is just an example of somebody making bad statements, bad judgments, and jumping to not good conclusions.
All right, perfect 2 minutes. Anybody else? Reverend Larry.
Something must be wrong with my picture because I can't see my face on the screen. But I'm glad you can see my hands anyway. But anyway, I think, when you get down to the bottom line, this is just another example of the powerful Jewish influence in America. I mean, who else would object to Palestinian pens, except
I'm not able to hear you now all of a sudden. Can you all hear? No. Larry, we're not able to hear you. I'm sorry.
all right.
I heard the first part.
Can I hear you now?
Okay. I'm gonna sign out and come back in.
I can hear you now.
Okay. I'm gonna sign out and
Okay.
come back in.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Teresa.
I don't know what happens to people when they get on an airplane, but I'm not on social media. I didn't hear about this event, and I'm actually happy I'm not on social media. The news that I get is crazy enough. It really is. But what I heard about, the incidents I heard about on a plane was Terrell Davis. And I only know that name because I used to live in Denver for 4 years. He used to be a professional football player. And it's almost, I would love to say that the air is thin, but I know it's mixed, and whatever they mix it with, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt that it's really affecting their judgment. I mean, up until very recently, you could wear what you want to wear, and no one thought about, like, really cared to the degree, the just the polarizing degree of the environment that we're in. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And I remember years ago where this was I think he was a Greek or Italian guy, and he was doing calculus, like higher level calculus. But this woman beside him thought he was writing in Arabic because she couldn't understand what he was doing, and you know, pegged him as a terrorist. And this was on an airplane. It's just like the after 9/11, just the hyper intolerance of people on an airplane. Maybe that's the stories that we're hearing, but it's just like, wow, how much can anyone? I mean, I again, I know we became really extra hyper vigilant around planes and security. If you watch old movies, it's just amazing. We used to smoke everywhere. People could escort you to the gate, and just how threatened people feel now, and you just about have to strip down to your underwear. Especially when I was living in Egypt, I was always the randomly searched passenger. And then just as soon as I lived in Mexico, because I got a job from Egypt and then I got a job in Mexico, never flagged ever again.
You just have
So
2 minutes that
okay.
complete your thought if you need to.
No, I'm just saying that the environment that we're in now is just like somebody can't wear a flag and suddenly seeing that. And I think it's hilarious. Like, how many Confederate flags do I get to pass by and not flip out and call, you know, domestic terrorists and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, this flag is the one you get upset about. Sorry, but go ahead.
Anybody else? Larry?
I just kind of pick up on where I was, where I left off, in that, the reality is only one way that could have been a problem, that the powerful Jews complained to the airlines. And same way they complain if college professors speak out, or anybody else speak out. And all the while, this senseless genocide is continuing to take place in Palestine, and the world just seems silent. I don't think it even came up at the Republican convention, and it's just a disgrace. The silence of the lamb. All the demonstrations that started out one time in America, they were put down by the strong Jewish lobby. So, we're in a situation right now. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marla, can you
Yes.
hear me? I'm
Yes.
having trouble. I go off the screen, you all go off the screen. I want, and I hate to break the rules, but I wanted to say something, but you couldn't see me or hear me, and so I don't know, something's going on this morning with our technology or something. But
Do
anyway,
you have
could you
a clarifying
put me?
question, or do you want to be on the list?
I want to be on the list.
Okay, I have you on the list. All right,
Okay.
Phyllis?
Well, I think it's important to avoid the real problem of anti-Semitism in the world, to really, what's the word I'm looking for? Have an understanding or a separation of Judaism versus Zionism. I think that to say the strong Jewish lobby, it's really doing a disservice to all the pro-Palestinian, pro-human rights Jews in the world. And I follow a lot of them on social media too. And they're speaking out strongly against what Zionism is doing to Judaism. Zionism is a political, philosophical movement. Judaism is a religion. And there are people who practice Judaism in a way that they have an understanding of their responsibility to care for the world, to repair the world. That's tikkun olam in Hebrew, to repair the world. So I think it's important to, we're talking about APAC or whatever. And we don't know that the person who made this comment from Delta or the people who took the pictures, we don't know if they were Jewish or Zionists. They could be a straight up paranoid white American who goes to church every Sunday. So let's just be aware that we don't want to say things that lump all Jewish people in with a situation that they might not believe in. Thanks. Larry has a clarifying question.
Yeah, in a perfect 2 minutes. Larry?
Yes, you mentioned the term anti-Semitism. Would you explain what you mean by anti-Semitism?
So historically, anti-Semitism means being against Jewish people for the fact of their being Jewish. And I understand that Arab people are also Semitic. That's just the understanding that exists right now. Nobody says anti-Semitism and means anti-Palestinian, unfortunately. But, we have to make sure we're not putting other people in a bucket that they don't belong in, meaning all Jewish people.
Did that answer your question?
No, because if one is strongly opposed to what
You want to get
Israel
on the list?
Yeah.
No, Marla asked me, did that answer my
Yeah,
question?
but
You're
you
not,
can say no, but you don't get to start talking. So.
Yeah, I think because there's only one clarifying question, right, per person.
There's 2 clarifying questions per person, but the person who says no, it didn't answer my question, they don't get to make a speech. And I don't have an obligation to answer his question the way he wants it answered.
no, I thought Marla was the facilitator. Apologize.
Yeah. I thought we were supposed to ask, and I guess I was just expecting a yes or no, but would you like to get back on the list, Larry?
No, not right now.
Okay. All right, Marion? Marion, you're still muted if you're trying to talk.
I'm trying to unmute.
We can hear you.
Okay, all right. My computer's acting crazy or something. Something popped up on my phone from some news bureau. And it said that the International Court of Justice says Israel's settlement policies and exploitation of natural resources in the Palestinian territory are in breach of international law. So I remember, and this was day before yesterday, this popped up on my phone. I remember hearing the Prime Minister Netanyahu say a couple of weeks ago, he didn't care what anybody had to say, and he called out the United States. He said, Israel is going to do what Israel wants to do as far as the Palestinian situation was concerned. I thought he was very arrogant and just downright nasty. And of course, I was talking back to the video. You were cheeky so and so, and it was just I was so appalled at his arrogance. We're gonna do. He sort of cocked his head to one side the way he does, and Israel is gonna do what Israel is gonna do. We don't care what the rest of the world thinks. And I just thought it was just so awful. And then a couple of days ago, this statement from the International Court of Justice, International Court of Justice. So I said, well, this is just so appalling. You're just going to defy everybody else. Who in the ham fat do you think you are? Then the straw that really broke the camel's back was Israel bombed this, the Israeli army bombed this school shelter on the Gaza Strip. And this is in less than 2 weeks before that they bombed, and it killed some people inside, of course, who were sheltering in place, Palestinian citizens, of course. So I don't understand this rabid nastiness on the part of these people. These are their fellow human beings. They've lived there for eons with the people, and now you just gonna show your nastiness, your arrogance, your horribleness to the whole world, and you don't care.
And
Well, there are
Miriam,
more people that care than they do, and I'm all riled up again, so I'll calm down.
you just hit 2 minutes as well. Would you like to get back on the list?
I'll listen to the other conversations, the other
Okay.
remarks. Thank you, Marla.
Thank you. The list is currently open if other folks would like to get on the list. Larry?
Uh, um, it's easy to, to come in and defend in a statement that's made contrary to Israel's aim in the Middle East is considered to be anti-Semitic. And if you heavily support the Palestinians, if you heavily believe that there's genocide taking place in Palestine, or if you believe that Israel is illegally occupying the Palestinian land as declared by the United Nations and the world courts, and all of that is just interpreted as anti-Semitism, I think that's a gross defense of something that is taking place that is ungodly. And to be anti the Israeli government does not necessarily make one anti-Semitic. And to be anti-Semitic is not inclusive of just Israel. When they took over the land in 1948, all the people living in that area, all the Arabs, even Christians, they were called Semitic people. And so that term anti-Semitism has just been hijacked by those who call themselves Jews, and I don't think that's in order. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to get on the list? It's open. Beatrice.
I just sometimes have concerns that corporations or groups are cowardly to the degree that they bend with what would appear to negatively affect their bottom line, their profits, their what their stockholders would want to have happen. I'm thinking going back to Target last year when Target did their sales of during Pride Month, with the sales and the big deal in the big section with all of the material for gay people and for others who are supportive. And when there were concerns about it, then they either took it down. This year they didn't do it at all. I know it may be naive to expect that people for whom the bottom line and profit are the main idea, but you would expect that and hope that a social conscience would be part of who you are as an organization, and that you would be guided by principles beyond what might seem to be immediately good for you in terms of money. Those first comments that were made by whoever that person was were not, so they said, what were in keeping with the philosophy of Delta, but they were said. So somebody felt them. Somebody thought that was what was the right thing to say. And at the end, that the union says it's troubling to publicly witness Delta seemingly affirm bigoted and inflammatory comments. So that's ultimately what came to be. That's ultimately how this ended, with Delta looking like that, whether or not they want it to be that way. So I just think corporations have to be careful and have more diverse boards and let people know what the real truth and right are.
All right, thank you, Beatrice. Phyllis, go ahead, and then the list is open after Phyllis. Pedro.
So I think it was interesting that Delta didn't have a uniform code policy that involved only wearing American flags until this incident. And then they created that pretty quickly so that now people can only wear American flags on their uniforms. So it seems like even though the person was removed from their role on the social media page, that they still enacted a policy that supported what that person had written after the fact. So that's troubling. And the pro-Palestinian BDS movement is causing a lot of losses to companies that they're targeting, and a lot of people are not going to fly Delta now because of this. So it could hurt the bottom line the other way. I think they underestimate how many people really see that what's been happening to the Palestinians for 75 years plus. They see what they weren't seeing, and they're taking action to support their new understanding. Thanks.
Thank you. Pedro. I've got somebody mowing here and next to me, if you can hear it.
Sorry
So-
about that, I was muted. Yeah, it's interesting to me. I really think our market economy is such a negative influence on human rights in the fact that, as Beatrice, excuse me, indicated, that corporations are so interested in not ruffling anyone's feathers so they can get more people on their flights or not upset other people. And so their responsibility as being so powerful in the amount of wealth that they have is totally vacated. It seems like there should be a, some type of open chat where corporations each have a public relations person that would be unidentifiable, that could then put out what they really felt about situations without having that type of backlash, right? But instead, nobody dares say anything, and therefore everything stays the same, and the most powerful continue to, absolutely devastate the Palestinians, right? I mean, the Lancet article, they are a very prestigious medical journal, peer reviewed. They thought that their deal was very conservative. I mean, anybody with a brain that could look at the devastation that's occurred would certainly question this ridiculously low number of 38,000 that the government deal or whatever and such. So yeah, I mean, I think corporations, they have an obligation, they have a moral responsibility based on the wealth that they've made in this culture to speak out against egregious acts, and maybe creating an anonymous way of doing that. They could speak out without being concerned about their bottom line, which they always are. Thank you.
Thank you. Exactly 2 minutes also. Anybody else would like to get on the list? Oh, awesome. Teresa and then Larry.
Yeah, I just have tangential things to say, but I had to look up one of the last times I remember that an airline, and it was United, when they dragged that Asian doctor off the plane. And the first statement that the airline representative, and it wasn't the social media guy, I think it was the CEO, and he said something that was so off base that he had to do a turnaround, apologize, because their first, it seems like airlines, again, I guess it's all I can think about is that the people who think to respond only have other people who think the way they do in the room. And they all sign off on, yeah, this is a good thing. And I think the CEO back, and this was in 2017, said something to the effect of, well, you know, if he would have just cooperated, and everyone's just like, who is this guy taking the, I mean, this doctor had he paid for his seat. I mean, and to be dragged off, if you could be a paying customer and that's how you're treated. And that's kind of the way I see like airline PR just does not impress me. And when you're talking about, oh, you're not going to fly this airline, well, do you want to fly any place that has a Boeing airplane? I mean, it's really hard to know which plane you're going to get on. Okay. So I don't know, and I haven't flown since 2019, like just before we shut down for COVID. And I'm not anxious to get back on a plane. I mean, all these years, it's just like people going nuts because of masks, and now we're going nuts because of flags. So I'm not sure. And I don't want to be one of these people who are like, no, I'm never going to go out or leave the house again. But wow, the things that just triggers people now. So
And that's 2 minutes.
okay.
All right, you want to get back on the list? No, okay. Larry, you're next.
Yeah, you know, while we may not be able to say definitively that the Jewish lobby is behind what took place with those flight attendants, I think we're safe to assume, until proven wrong, that considering the climate that we're in, that they were behind it. And Pedro mentioned about corporations, but when corporations will find it difficult to speak out, and corporations are part of the problems. Corporations have an interest in the extension of manifest destiny, which is what we see taking place in America. Manifest destiny is being extended by Project 2025. Project 2025 is a response to the 1619 project. So, everything is interconnected. And I have an article in front of me that says Israel okays plans for thousands of new settlement homes, defying U.S. It says Israel's far-right government on Monday approved plans to build over 5,000 new homes in Jewish settlements in the West Bank. Israel media said a move that threatens to worsen increasingly strained relations with the United States. Now, this article appeared in the local newspaper in June of 2023, 4 months before October the 7th. So when we start this whole conflict on October the 7th, saying Hamas was responsible, well, what was taking place on October the 6th, October the 5th? So we just can't start on October the 7th and say Hamas did this terrible thing to Israel. Yes, they did. It's almost like Nat Turner. We can't start with the Nat Turner rebellion and pretend that nothing was happening before the day that Nat Turner had his rebellion. So we need to keep everything in perspective and connect all the dots. Thank you.
Thank you. Amal.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
What's interesting is that when I look at the what happened to these flight attendants, I'm amazed because I'm no, let me take that back. I'm not amazed. I'm not amazed, and I'm not surprised, because the media has a way of making people who are not dangerous out to be very dangerous, or make people who are actually very friendly out to be enemies. And so these people put somebody in an uncomfortable position. And that's been the history of the United States. Whenever white folks get uncomfortable with people who don't look like them, this is the response that you get. all they saw was a flag. They don't know what these ladies, what I'm assuming that they were ladies because they were flight attendants, but I could be wrong. They don't know what these people were on the flight. What they don't know what their political ideology was or anything. They just assumed that they were dangerous. But once again, this is the history of the United States. If the conflict that we see going on in Palestine right now, if this was South Africa, we call it apartheid. We call it apartheid. But yet we don't do that when it's the Palestinians. And they're the ones who are getting the backlash. You know, Benjamin Netanyahu, I believe he was at the United Nations and he was making a speech, and he said, as long as he was prime minister, there'd never be a Palestinian state. Nobody called that anti-Palestinian. This man has a personal vendetta against the Palestinian people. I believe his brother or somebody was killed by the PLO, if I'm not mistaken, but he has a personal vendetta against the Palestinian people. So when people say that he's not listening to nobody in the international community, and particularly the United States, I'm actually not surprised, because who does the United States listen to when they go into certain lands against the UN and all of these people who are supposed to keep nations in check when they're doing wrong?
You just hit the 2 minutes.
That's fine.
Right. And Glenn, I see you joined us. Anybody else like to get on the list right now? Phyllis.
There's a lot of people that are calling out the way the Palestinians are treated in Israel as apartheid. The Israelis don't like it, and they make fun of it. And even pro-Zionist Americans take trips to Israel and walk around, and because somebody in a hijab walks behind them, they say, "Where's the apartheid? I don't see the apartheid." Well, the apartheid is the big wall that separates parts of the West Bank, and all the checkpoints that Palestinians have to go through, and the separate roads, and everything's separate, and a separate judicial system. That's all apartheid. It's also Jim Crow, which we can also refer to it as. But I think there's lots of people who do see the connections between past oppressions and this current situation, and all around the world, there's lots of people who are waking up, if they weren't already awake, and seeing what's going on and protesting on behalf of Palestine. So it gives me hope that this will be resolved no matter what Netanyahu wants. I think he's actually, which I predicted a long time ago, that Israel was going to do itself in, and I think he's furthering that cause along, because he is making very irrational decisions and not seeing the bigger picture. He just sees his own. Hey, he needs to stay out of jail like Trump. He's going to get indicted if he's not the prime minister. So, yeah, and he just looks more demented every time I see him talk. So that's all for now. Thanks.
Thank you. The list is open. Pedro and Marion.
I'm trying to still get my mind around this
I saw
fact
you.
that you can't wear a pin of any country's flag except the United States, and how that could possibly not be a compromise of freedom of speech. And I guess I'm not familiar with the law when it comes to corporations or private businesses being able to dictate dress codes and that type of stuff in their deal there. But I think when it comes to airlines, they come under some type of federal aegis, some federal type of, control and influence. And so it seems like that should not even be a a possibility or whatever, if y'all are following what I'm saying. In other words, that they have to follow by federal kind of standards, not by independent types of decisions and such. And I don't know if anyone's really familiar with that law, but I'd be interested to find out. And of course, you know, if you have a flag of another country, which I'm sure many people are very proud of the country they were born from, or the heritage that their family emigrated to the United States from, and have multiple flags. I know Cubans have Cuban and US flags, and you know, that type of thing. It does seem really remarkable that all of a sudden the Palestinian flag is being banned through a policy, basically. And of course, that's the essence of racism, right? That one race could be singled out in such a way. I'll just leave it there. But if anyone has any insights as to federal rules, if they anyhow influence airlines, I'd love to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Marion?
Since this discussion
Excuse
started,
me, Marla, do you have me down?
Yes, Glenn, I do. You're after Teresa.
All right.
Thank you. Marion?
since we started the discussion about flags, I thought about an event that takes place in October. It's called United Nations Day. It's on October 24th. And I remember I'd gone to an educational supply store and bought a packet of all of the nations that belong to the United Nations. And they were thick cardboard stock and in color. And I put them on a wall for the children and anyone who else came into the room to see. And it just so happened there was a parent teacher conference that particular week. I put them up, and I had the flag of Israel and the Palestinian flag, even though Palestine was not a state. And I had 2 or 3 Palestinian students in my class. When the Palestinian parents came, they were very happy to see the flags. And there was one gentleman who called me out because I had the Israeli flag on the board. So I explained to him, I said, "Did you see the title at the beginning of the display?" I said, it said countries of the United Nations. So the gentleman didn't want to have a conversation about his daughter, and I taught 3 of his children. And I took the flag down so we could have our parent-teacher discussion. But I told him, I said, just so we can have this discussion, I said, but I'm going to put it back up. I said, this has nothing to do with me taking sides for or against anybody. I said, I just put the display up because it was a social studies lesson and we were talking about the nations that are part of the United Nations Assembly. So that memory came back to me since we've been talking. And I even had to speak to the students about that. I was not pro or con against either country. And as it turned out, I had Palestinian neighbors, and as time went on, I understood why the gentleman was. I understood then, at the time, when he was upset when he saw the flag of Israel in the display, and as time went on, I did understand why he was upset. But those ladies or whoever was wearing those
2-minute
pins had
mark.
nothing to. I went over my time, right?
You just hit 2 minutes, but if you'd like to
Okay.
complete your thought, go ahead, or I can put you
All
back
right.
on.
Well,
the
I just
list.
wanted to share with you all that I had a flag story.
Thank you. Teresa.
Yeah, so I am not the least bit surprised that, and I presume that the flight attendants were women, that they wore something and then the dress code was changed, because ever since, you know, girls are in school, it seems like the dress code is primarily concerned about what those of us who are female appearing wear, and that we have to worry extra about what we wear because how it's going to be perceived, and how we wear because those who are not female appearing just and this is worldwide too. It's just like, well, why can't men control themselves despite what I wear? So I'm not the least bit surprised that, oh, suddenly we got a dress code change. Yeah, that's part of a bigger story that has nothing to do with flags. That's all I wanted to say about and as far as what are the guidelines and freedom of speech, no, your school and your job can dictate what you wear, and not just your clothes, but also your hair. I love that that rhymed. I wasn't trying for that, but your whole First Amendment rights about freedom of speech really get into the weeds when it comes to your job and your school. And so I am absolutely not surprised that if these were two women who wore those pins, that the dress code was changed immediately, because that is kind of par for the course of being a woman.
Thank you. Glenn, go ahead.
Well, I think the change of the dress code is based on the bottom line, money. The When that went viral, an airline spends billions of dollars on advertising that will give them business. They don't want no bad advertisement. They don't want something going viral that they didn't put out there. And there, you can see the pressure that this small group can bring down on colleges, get the head of the college fired, get our whole political system behind them. Yes, the airline was worried about their bottom line. That's why they hurry up and change the dress code, because they didn't want to lose their business. And that's how I'm looking at it.
All right, thank you. I have Phyllis next, and then we probably have time for one or two more, or we can just head into the wrap-ups. Phyllis.
So yeah, I wanted to clarify that the two people whose pictures were taken, one was a man and one was a woman, the flight attendants. And I was looking back to see if I could find the picture, but can't find it. I have too many things saved on Instagram. But I do agree with what Teresa was saying about how women are often targeted about what we wear, and are expected to make sure men, don't let themselves get out of control. It's all on us, although completely modestly dressed women do get attacked and raped. So clearly there's no way to fend them off if they want it. Except for poking their eyes out. So yeah, I also agree that wherever you work can dictate what you wear and what is allowed. And especially like where I work, there's certain uniform or scrub colors for certain groups of people. Nurses wear one color, doctors wear another color, physical therapists wear another color, the respiratory therapists wear another color. It's, and it helps them to be easily identified. As a social worker, I can wear scrubs, but I don't.
United States flag.
What?
Sorry, I
Oh,
had
that was
something
you.
come on
Okay.
quickly, and I
okay,
was
go
like,
for it.
why is it doing that?
So yeah, I think it is. I also will say that I, with another coworker, challenged a part of our dress code during COVID and regarding hair color, and it was changed. So it is possible to enact change where you are, if you want to fight that fight.
You just hit 2 minutes.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, does anybody else have anything before we head to the wrap-ups? Larry?
Yeah, just, I don't know if this is in order with what someone said, but, you know, women can never dress in lascivious manners and expect all the control to be on the part of men. You know, when you dress in such a way so as to excite natural lust in a man, don't get offended if he look at you and talk about he ought to control himself. That's just not the way society is operates. That's not the nature of man-woman relationships. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Phyllis has a clarifying question.
Is rape the nature of man-woman relationships?
Rape is unnatural. Goes contrary to nature.
Phyllis?
Women are not responsible for how men react to what we're wearing. And as I said, it doesn't take a lot of skin to turn a man to attacking or taking what he wants. And this idea that it's on the women, like if you can't control yourself, as they teach in Islam, avert your eyes, look away. That's the first rule of modesty for men in Islam. Look away. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll head into the wrap up since it's 11:01. Everybody spoke except for Nancy. Nancy, would you like to take 2 minutes for the wrap up, and then I'll move into the 1-minute wrap ups?
Thank you. I just wanted to say I thought it was a very interesting discussion, and I just kind of listened to all sides. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start the 1-minute wrap ups. I'm just going to start at the top of the screen. Amal.
Yeah, great article. A lot of work need to be done with these corporations and businesses, and I guarantee you that if this was an Israeli flag, we're not having this conversation. Wouldn't even be a conversation. So we need to start holding these corporations like Delta and others accountable for their actions, because this was wrong.
All right, thank you. Beatrice.
Great conversation, good article. I was thinking about how when there was no fraud in the Georgia election and everybody knew there was no fraud, the first thing the legislature did was change rules, indicating that, whatever was true does not matter. We're going to do our agenda. Well, they changed the rules about the flags as if there should not have been anything wrong with the people having the flags, but by changing the rules, it indicates that it was. So you're sending mixed messages because you're not clear yourself. And I respect men more to think that their brains are more empowered than what's in their pants, and we need to respect that it is, and not say things like, what I have on is sending them, come on, let's use our brains. So I have more respect for men than that. And I don't think anything I wear should make anybody want to harm me. Thank you for this conversation. Always good to be with y'all.
Thank you. Pedro.
I just keep coming back to what a conscious and unconscious racist perspective so many people have. And, the fact that a Palestinian life there's just no such thing as a lesser human being. And as long as people don't really recognize that in their heart, they continue to rationalize this insanity that we're talking about. And it's not just Palestinian, but just generally people of color. I mean, Biden gets up there and proudly says, we haven't lost a single US serviceman in Ukraine, or whatever. So anyhow, that's all I wanted to say. It's just the imperative of that there's no such thing as a lesser human being. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa.
Hi, thank you for this article, Marla. And we're talking so much about flags. I think I've mentioned this before. My mother's side of the family have been meeting at our family reunion for 83 consecutive years. And one of the activities that we did was designing a family flag. And I just laughed because I thought right now it's seen as, oh, this is great. I think mine's flag design is going to become a t-shirt, by the way. But it's like, how soon will this whole idea of a family flag sour? And I'm wondering what incident is because I do have a poet friend in Austin. I don't know if anybody lives in Austin, Tom the World Poet. I was surprised that he was against flags of all kinds. And now I see, the more years that pass by, I see the wisdom of that. But if it wasn't the flag as a symbol, there'd always be symbols. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy. Oh, I'm sorry. Nancy, you already did.
Yeah, I already spoke. It's okay. Yeah.
I'm like on another planet. Okay, Phyllis.
Two things I want to say. It was interesting in New Orleans when the war broke out between Russia and Ukraine. There were a lot of houses, especially uptown, with Ukrainian flags flying. Since October, I haven't seen Palestinian or Israeli flags on houses here until this past week, walking around with my niece and her friend. We passed a house that had an American flag and an Israeli flag on it on one of the side streets over here. And that's the first one I've seen, and I haven't seen any others since that day. I also want to say that I'm wearing my shirt today that says Octavia Butler tried to tell us. Today, July 20th, Saturday, July 20th, 2024, is the date that is on the first page of the Parable of the Sower. When that book started, was today. So I see that Teresa knows what I'm talking about. So if anybody has not read that book, I highly recommend it. And the Parable of the Talents and everything else Octavia Butler wrote, because she is a prophet. And I highly recommend her books. So thanks, Marla. It was a good topic, a good conversation.
Thank you. Larry.
I don't think I have nothing else to add.
Okay. And Glenn.
Like I say, it's the bottom line is I don't think it's racism at all. Just the airline going with the least who can do it harm. The Palestinian can't do them no harm. You know, but if you put the news media behind this, which that minority they have power over the news media. They can make a lot of trouble for the airline, and the airlines, public relations see the problem. So that's why they hurry up and immediately act to pacify it. So that's my opinion on it.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, and also good to see you back, Pedro.
All right, Marian, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Marla, for this very timely, very relevant topic. I don't know when we human beings are going to get our act together. I personally didn't see anything wrong with the people wearing pins, we're not going to have everybody being monolithic. And it's just appalling, and it's almost unbelievable that adults cannot realize or appreciate the diversity of human beings. And you all have heard me just say this before. Coincidentally, I'm wearing a shirt. A lot of my t-shirts have words and messages on them. And I've worn this shirt. There's a big silhouette of a Native American on a horse, and it says, "No one is illegal on stolen land." I don't wear the shirt to incite or ride anything like that, but I remember during Black History Month, I wore it to go walking with my sister and my granddaughter. And we went to the park, and we ended up going into the museum in City Park. And people of different stripes make positive comments about my "No one is illegal on stolen land" with the silhouette of the Native American riding on the horse. "Oh, I like your shirt, ma'am. That's a cool shirt." And I said, "Thank you." People, as I said, of every stripe, of every age, said they like my shirt. So I'm glad of that nobody took a negative approach and wanted to smack me down the museum steps. But thanks again, Marla, for the relevant, timely topic. We really needed to have this discussion.
Thank you, and thanks to everybody. I just have a couple of things to add. I thought it was so bizarre, but not unusual, I guess, that the person who sent this into social media on Delta, felt so threatened, allegedly, with a quote unquote Hamas badge. And if they felt so threatened at that time, why didn't they confront the flight attendants then and there, and say something if they felt that threatened or that concerned? To me, this is kind of a part of the old adage that if you see something you don't like, you always have the opportunity to just scroll on by. And the same thing goes for in public. If you don't like it, you can very easily move away, move along, distract yourself with something else. I mean, folks who were wearing the Palestinian pin were doing absolutely no harm. The other thing that I found out is that the employees of Delta, the flight attendants, are pushing back about this rule, and they have started a petition. They're saying that they are opposed to the new dress code because they feel that their ability previously to freely express themselves with flags that might represent themselves, their heritage and so forth, connected them more with the passengers on flights and created kind of a worldwide community and connection with their travelers that now they are saying, is being taken away. So I think that's a pretty strong argument, but I doubt that Delta will come to some sort of compromise with that. I think that's essentially everything I had. I appreciate everybody's insight and commentary. So have a great rest of your weekend.